Perhaps in all of these motivational videos and these motivational speakers and these people that we follow, there is a question that is the most important question that I have to answer every day. And you could insert multiple here, but I'm going to use this one. What are you going to do about it? I'm Zach. This is The Average Christian. It's a project of learning about what it means to have a relationship with God and how do I live that out in practical terms. And the question for the day, every day in the morning, what are you going to do about it? I need to accomplish X, Y, and Z. What are you going to do about it? I need to do this, that, and the other. This has gone wrong in my life. I don't like the way this is happening or the way this looks. And you can insert so many things in there. So you've got to put yours in there. Whatever it is that you don't like, you're complaining about, you wish were different. The question is, what are you going to do about it? And I know that our generation and our society is moving more toward what does somebody else owe me? What is somebody else going to do about it? What has somebody done to me to put me in this place? But in order to get out of it, you've got to ask, what am I going to do about it? Now, there is a lot of power that has been given to you through God. But I want to look at Paul and Silas, and I'll look at Paul by himself in just a little bit. God has not given us, and as Paul told Timothy in 2 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 7, he's not given us a spirit of fear. You can throw in there that fear causes us to make excuses. Fear keeps us from doing anything about it. Fear causes us to blame others because we don't want to answer the question, what am I going to do about it? But God has given us instead a spirit of power, of love, and self-control. So I get to choose for me. And God has given me that power to manipulate my own life and not have my life live me. So again, the question, what are you going to do about it? Paul and Silas find themselves in prison because Paul, annoyed with this woman who had the spirit of divination in Acts chapter 16, as they're in Philippi, he casts this spirit out, and he costs these people making money off of her because she's a fortune teller, cost them a lot of money. So when you get to verse 16, as they were going to the place of prayer, well, no, let's skip down. I mentioned that already. In verse 19, when her owners saw that their hope of gain was gone, they seized Paul and Silas, dragged them into the marketplace before the rulers. You got to take a moment and get in your mind this scenario. If you were dragged out in the middle of a shopping center or whatever the case is, drag them into the marketplace before the rulers. And when they had brought them to the magistrates, they said, these men are Jews and they are disturbing our city. They advocate customs that are not lawful for us as Romans to accept or practice. Well, the crowd joined in and attacking them. Now they've gone from embarrassing them and get this crowd around them and threatening them. Now they are attacking these two men, Paul and Silas, who have just been going around spreading the gospel on one of Paul's missionary journeys. And the magistrates tore the garments off of them, gave them orders to beat them with rods. You got that in your mind? It's kind of mean to ask Paul and Silas, what you going to do about it? But that's really the question we're going to answer here. And just follow me here for a few more minutes. When they had inflicted many blows upon them, they threw them into prison, ordering the jailer to keep them safely. Having received this order, he put them into the inner prison, which could be translated the dungeon, and fastened their feet in the stocks. I don't know what that feels like, but I cannot imagine in a seated position, standing position, whatever, that having your feet in these what's probably wooden planks, chained, locked together with just enough room to get your ankles in, and you probably their wrists chained, and they've been beaten. Who knows what their backs look like or their bodies look like. They've been attacked. Okay, so you can imagine what the mood might be. You can imagine the levels of fear. And you could ask Paul and Silas and feel like it's a horrible thing to ask these two guys who have had things done to them that they didn't deserve. They were unfairly beaten, and beaten as Romans. That comes into play later on in this account. So what do you do in that situation? About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God. That's not what I expected either. You ever seen a small group try to sing together and worship God? Nobody wants to sing out because they're afraid of being heard. It's easy to sing with 1,000 people or 100 people. These two guys, who knows if they could carry a tune, are sitting in a dungeon singing and praying to God, and the prisoners were listening to them and hearing them. It wasn't anything they could do to get out of the situation. So in that situation, instead of letting it master them, instead of just reacting, they do what's most natural for them spiritually. They worship. They pray to God. That's the only one that's going to be able to help them probably. They sing to God to praise him, I'm sure. And when you see them later on, let me see, I was going to mention, you know what? I'll skip that for now. That's it. They didn't do anything to get themselves out. God, of course, miraculously lets them out of prison, but they don't take off running. They take opportunity. For the Philippian jailer and his family, they obey the gospel that night. They obey Christ. And then even when they're released later on, Paul takes the opportunity to say, no, you're not sneaking us out the back door. Look, you throw me in jail and beat me like that and chain me and throw me in the dungeon. As soon as they open the door and say, get out, you won't see nothing but my backside running away. Paul says, no, you beat us publicly. You're going to release us publicly. You're not going to slide. So what are you going to do about your situation? Well, look at these two guys and see what they did and how they reacted. And mentality plays such a part of it. Faith is all of it. Their faith and their trust in God. Now, let's look at another. In fact, let's go to 2 Timothy chapter 4 and look at another scenario where there's nothing Paul could do. And he knew it. In 2 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 6, Paul has been writing, of course, he's finishing up this letter to Timothy, and he knows a couple of things. He's going to die. He's in prison for the second time. The first time was on house arrest. He was released. He got out and did more for the Lord. This time he knows he's not getting out. So he mentions this to Timothy in chapter 4 and verse 6. I'm already being poured out as a drink offering. The time of my departure has come. See, that's interesting. He says departure, isn't it? It's kind of like a ship leaving the harbor. If you were to look at the background to the wording that's used here, he's not talking about my end, my death. Now, you know he's talking about his death, but he says my departure. What does he know? I'm going on to be with the Lord. He mentions that I fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now, he didn't cop out either on those things. He didn't look at those things and say, well, okay, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I've kept the faith. And so I'm done. I'm in prison. This is too much. It's the second time. Who knows what they're doing to him in prison? It's been a difficult life for Paul since he's switched to Jesus, since he's obeyed Christ. He says in verse 8, henceforth there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who has loved his appearing. Now, you say, okay, what are you going to do about it, Paul? Well, he's put in jail. He's put in prison. He's still studying. He asks for parchments later on. He asks for papers. He asks for other things because he has plans. Where in what context is he writing about his death, his impending doom, if we said it, perhaps? And what kind of letter would you be writing if you were in prison? About how you were innocent, how you didn't deserve to be there. Please, somebody get me, call a lawyer, do everything you can about how horrible it is. Paul writes to Timothy to tell him, hey, by the way, I'm going to die, so you need to use these spiritual gifts that you were given. You need not be ashamed of me or ashamed of Jesus. You need to go forward. You need to realize that there's going to be trouble coming, and you need to preach the word. And he's building this guy up. So instead of whining about his scenario and his situation, which was completely unfair, what's he doing about it? He's using his ability to build up the next guy up, if you will, his companion, this young man that he's pulled from a congregation and taken with him on his travels. And those are bleak situations. Hopefully your situations are not that bleak. You can change your scenarios and your situation. If you just answer that question, what am I going to do about it? And take that responsibility. Well, thank you for being with us today. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, please subscribe. It will help you keep up with new releases. And if you like this content, please hit that thumbs up so it helps get the word out about the channel and get these videos suggested. Over here is a recommendation from YouTube and also our latest release. For those of you listening on podcasts, thank you for being with us. If you haven't already, we'd appreciate if you would subscribe, rate, and review to help, once again, share the channel and expand our reach. And please, for helping somebody else, consider sharing this.